What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to create a recipe application. I'm going to make the application in the same way that I have shown you for hiding the API keys and stuff, because we need to deal with some APIs and API keys and secrets. So I'm going to use those data that I have. So if I show you, maybe if you remember this. So basically, if you go to edamam.com, you are going to see this sort of things, and you need to sign up for Recipe Search API. So once you sign into it or sign up to it, then you're going to have a dashboard like this. You go to the application and this will come, and then you're going to create a new application. So as I already have my application created, so I'm going to be using, if you can see the application ID and the application keys, this ID and this key, I'm going to be using this in the application. But one thing I'm telling you that yes, I am displaying the API key and the application ID for the purpose of the video, but after as we end the video, I'm going to change it anyway. So you can't access any sort of data from this API key, application keys or application ID. So that's the thing. So basically, once we use this API, fetch the data and create our application, the ultimate thing that we're going to build is something that looks like this. So if I make it a little bit bigger, so basically this is a search bar. As I've said previously, this is a search bar. You can search for anything here. So by the end of the development process, I'm going to demonstrate everything at the end of the video. So right now, let's just take this aside and let's head to the video. Okay, so as you can see that we need to create the directory first, the main root project directory. So I'm going to go with mkdir, and I'm going to name it a recipe app. So this is the name of the directory. So if I go with an ls, but I don't need to do that actually. I can go to the recipe app directory, and if I go to an ls, there is nothing. So at first I'm going to create one directory that is the server. So I'm going to write mkdir and then server. So this is one of the directories that has been created, and I can also create a client directory. So client. So if I do an ls, you can see that we have a client and a server directories here respectively. So now what I want to do is at first go inside the server directory. So I'm going to cd to the server, and here I'm going to create a node application with npm init -y. So if I click, okay, so the application has been created. If I do an ls, you can see that we just have a package.json. That means we have the node application created. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install some of the dependencies that I will be using in the backend. So at first I'm going to install Express, then I'm going to install course. I will be needing .env, and I will be using Axios. So these are the things that I'm going to install. So let this be installed. Okay, so I already have these. And I also need a node server, so that will be a dev dependency. So that's why I'm going to write npm i -D, and I will be installing node. So this is going to take a little bit of a while, and I guess once this is done, we can create a file which is called server.js, which will be the server file where we're going to write the code for the backend part. So as you can see that we have node already installed. So what I can do right now first is I will be going to the package.json. So I'm using new Vim editor instead of VS Code, so I'm going to go this way. So as you can see that I'm entering the package.json. There you go. So now I want to fix some things. One of them is after this main, I'm going to write type, and this type will be module. This is one of the things. And I think I can remove this test script. We don't need this. So the first script will be test dev. Here we are going to start things off with node server. So I'm going to type node server.js. This is the name of the file that we are going to create in a moment. And with that, let's have a start script. That might be the case if we are going for production builds. So we can do that with node server.js. So this is the name of the script. So that's the thing that I wanted for the package.json. So I think I will be saving this, and I will quit. Okay, now if I do an ls, you can see that I have the node modules, I have the package.json and package.log.json, but I do not have the server.js file. So let's create that and start coding in it. But before that, I think I'm going to take myself out of the camera. Okay, so now let's get started. At first, I'm going to open the file called server.js with new Vim. It's not created, but if I give the command in Vim server.js, it will create the file and open it at the same time. So you see, we have the file opened. This is the empty file. Now let's start coding. So first we're going to import Express from Express. Then we're going to import Axios from Axios. Then import ports from course. Then we are going to import .env/config. So this is one of the files that that I didn't create yet, but after writing some of the lines here, then I'm going to go back and then create that file as well. Now, let's move on with const app. Let's define the app with an Express server, and we will be starting the Express server at port 5000. So we can take the 5000 from the .env file, so process.env, and it will be port. If not, then it will directly start from the port 5000. Okay, so we want this application or this backend to use course because we need to allow the details or the response we are getting. We will be getting from the API, the data that we're going to get from the API. We want this data to be accessed by some other origins as well. So that's why we need to allow course. So that's for this reason we are using course in this app. Then let's define where app is going to listen. So it's going to listen to the port, and we can have a callback function to it. Let's put another function where we're going to console.log and server is listening to port. Okay, so basically this is a file. So I think if we want to test it out to see if we are running this absolutely fine, so let's just save this file at first. And okay, this file is saved, and let's quit. Okay, now what we can do is type npm run start dev. This is the name of the script that we have created in the package.json. So if I start, you can see that the server is listening to port 5000. That means we can start the server correctly without any sort of error. So for now, I'm going to stop the server, and here I'm going to create a file which is called .env. That's why just like the same way. So if I do an ls, you can see that we have the server.js file. So likewise, we're going to create the .env file here. So I'm doing nvim then space .env. So with env, I'm opening the .env file, and in this .env file, we are going to have some of the things. Namely, I'm just going to show you this port will be 5000. We are going to have an app ID, and we are going to have app key. Okay, so if you remember that, if I make this a little bit bigger, then you can see that if I go to the developer.edamam, the recipe API, so from here we're going to take this application ID, we're going to copy this, and we're going to paste it in the app ID, and then we're going to take the application key. If you don't have this, you can create new key from here. So as I already have this, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it right here. And okay, so I guess that's that, and I think I can save this .env file and quit. Okay, so now if I do an ls, you can see that I also have the .env file. So now what I can do is this. I can head back to the server file, server.js. So I will be doing an nvm server.js, and as we have seen that we could start the server without any sort of error. Now let's write the other things that we want. So right now, let's have a get route. So app.get, and let's keep it with recipes, then query. So as you can see that we have a colon before query. That means this is a variable, this will change, and basically this is the URL that we're going to hit. So localhost port 5000 is the backend server or the proxy server that we have created, and on localhost 5000/recipes/ the query that we are going to send from the frontend, and by default it will be set to chicken. I'm going to show you in a bit when we go to the frontend. So basically that will be requested through the URL, and we are going to have the data or the API hits with these search queries. So this will be the URL that we're going to hit, and let's have and async request response, then an arrow function. So here we will be having const response equals await dot get await axios dot get, and here we will be having the URL that we're going to hit actually. So I'm going to copy part of the URL here, so, and I'm going to explain step by step. So if I paste it, as you can see that https api.edamam.com/ we are going to search, and the search query will be request.params.query. So basically the query that we are sending from the front end, that is actually, if I show you this query, basically this is the same thing. So this is one of the things that we need. Then we have app ID, which is process.env.app ID. This is the app ID that we have defined in the .env file. So that's one thing that we need. And finally, what we need is the app key. So we can go with and app_key equals process dot, sorry, it should be a dollar than this. So process.env.app key. So these are the things that we need, and this is the URL that we are going to hit. So as I've shown you this, for now, just for testing this, let's change this query. Let's change this to supposedly chicken. And here we're just hard coding this part to chicken. So once we have this stored in response, first of all, we're going to console log and get what we are getting from response. And in case of Axios, we do need to access response.data. So this is what we're going to see first. And also, maybe if we want to see it from the browser, we can do, or maybe any API tools like maybe Postman or Insomnia, you can use those. I'm just going to use the browser in this case. So in case of this response, I'm going to send response.json, or it should be response.data. So I guess I'm going to save this and quit. Okay, now if we run the server, npm run start dev, you can see that the app is running on port 5000. And what we want to do is hit the localhost 5000, and we're going to go to /recipes/chicken. So if we hit the URL, as you can see that I have just typed the URL, if we hit that, so here you can see that if I make it a little bit bigger, you can see that response.data is providing us all of these. So this is the query of chicken, and we need to access hits so that we can get all of the items or all of the recipes, all of the different sort of dishes from the search term chicken. So we need to access hits. That's why if I take this away, what we can do right now is if we close the server and go to server.js once again, what we can do is we can have data.hits. And in case of the console log, we won't be needing that, but just for seeing the things, we can have it like this. So if we save this and then start the server again, and if we hit the URL again, you're going to see now, as you can see, that we are getting different recipes. So this is one of the recipe of a dish, this is another recipe of another dish, this is another recipe. Likewise, we are getting all the recipes that we wanted through the search term chicken. So I think we can close the server right now, and we can head back to npm server.js. So as you can see that we have the file running absolutely fine. So what we want to do right now is change those hard-coded things back to as it was. So this chicken, this will be query, and in case of the URL search term here, we can take this chicken off and we can have it as request.params.query. Okay, so I guess now we can save this and we can quit this file. So basically, what I think the part of the server side has been done. Now let's move on to the client side. So as we have the client folder, I'm going to cd there, and if I do an ls, you can see that we have the client folder here. So what we can do right now is cd into the client folder, and we want to create this a React application. So what I can do is npx create React app, and we want the application to be created in the client directly, so we can go with the docs. So this will take some time to install or maybe create the application, so we are going to come back after it's done. Okay, so as you can see that the application has been created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open another tab, and I'm going to get into the server folder because we need to keep the server running. So what I can do is I'm going to keep the server running. So I'm going to write npm run start dev. The server needs to be up and running, and in this file, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another terminal because I will be starting the React application with npm start from this and keep it running. So it's going to take a little while to start the application. In the meantime, I'm going to go to another terminal and I'm going to cd into the directory. Okay, so I am already in the client directory, and if you want to see that we have the React application up and running fine. So we're going to come back to this later on. Right now, let's move on and make some, maybe I would say, let's install some dependencies. But I think in case of this, we're going to need Axios only. So we're going to write npm I Axios in the client folder. So I'm going to let it install without it. So once it is installed, I can move on. All right. So as you can see that the Axios has been installed already. What we can do right now is we can create a file. Maybe the best thing is to create a components folder and then create a file, but we have only one component. So in this case, maybe we don't need to create a components folder separately. So what I'm going to do right now is I will be going into the source folder. And if I do an ls, you can see that we have app.js. So we want to create the file that we want, a component file. So I'm going to name it recipe. What I'm going to do is I want this to be in the same directory structure as app.js and the other files inside source. But I want that file to be directly inside source. So what I'm going to do right now is go with nvim and name it recipe.js. Okay, so I'm going to open recipe.js, and here let's start coding. Okay, first of all, let's input. Okay, before doing that, let's try and see if this works. No, it doesn't. Okay, so let's go with import React from React, and then we can go with const recipe. We're going to have some props which are title, then we can go with image and ingredients. Okay, let's make this an arrow function, and at the end of the file we will be exporting this. So export default recipe. Okay, so now as we are inside the recipe function, what we can do is directly go for a return block, and inside that we're going to have a div element. Okay, and inside this div element we will be having a class name. The class name will be, let's go for recipe, and then first of all we are going to have an h1 where we want the title to be displayed. So the title of the dish that we want, this is the thing. Then we can have an ordered list, and inside this we're going to have ingredients, and we need to map through this because there are a lot of ingredients that we will be having. So in case of this, we're going to map ingredient, and let's make this an arrow function. So here what we want to do is li, we're going to have ingredient dot text. So these things are all going to be coming from the API. So this is up to what we want, and after the ordered list I will be using an image. So the image class name should be image, and source, this will be image. Okay, we can have an alt text, but nothing is necessary for now. Includes an image div. So basically that's what we wanted for the recipe component. Right now what I can do is I'm going to save this and quit. Okay, so if I do an ls, you can see that we have the recipe.js. Now as you've seen that we have written some class names in the recipe.js. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a file which is called recipe.css. So right now I'm going to do nvim recipe.css, and inside that I'm going to actually paste instead of writing. So this is going to save some time. And if you want this CSS, you can find the link of my GitHub repository down in the description below, from where you can get this CSS and you can directly apply it on your application. So rather we are focusing on the functionalities and stuff other than the design. So right now I'm going to paste it. So there, that's what we have. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file and quit. So what I'm going to do is I will go to the recipe file, and I need to import this CSS file. So what I'm going to do here is import. This will be recipe.css. Okay, so I think I'm going to save this, and I will be quitting this file. There. Now what we want to do is go to the app.js file. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to be removing a lot of things from here. As you can see right now, I will be removing the things inside of this div class name app. So let's do it. Okay, so I have all of these things removed. I will keep the import app.css because I'm going to write some CSS lines as well, but I will be removing this import logos line. So let this be gone, and I will be making it a sort of functional component, so maybe an arrow function or something. Const app equals like so, and I'm going to take off the semicolons. I don't like using them anyway. Okay, now I will be importing React, and I will be using two hooks as usual. One of them is useState and the other one is useEffect. Okay, now as we've already created recipe, I'm going to import recipe, the recipe component from recipe. And as we have installed Axios, if you remember, so I will be importing Axios from Axios. Okay, so these are the things that we need. Now let's start with declaring some of the I should put it like states or use state. So let's start with recipes and set recipes. This will be use state array or list. Then we can go with search and set search. This can be a use state, and we have an empty string. Then we can go with const query set query. The initial value will be taken. Okay, so before we proceed, I'm going to let me say that the query that you're seeing here, this is the query. Basically, this is the query that we're going to send it through the params to the backend to hit the URL, and then the data will be fetched and rendered back to the frontend. So likewise, let's move on. After this, we are going to have const get recipes. This is a function. So basically, this will be an arrow function. Here, we are going to have const response equals await axios.get. So now if you remember that we are going to hit http://localhost port 5000 /recipes/ this will be query. So as we have defined in the backend, we are going to hit this URL, and this URL will be, this is sort of a proxy server which will take this query and then process it, hit the actual URL or the API, and then fetch those data in the backend. Then in the form of JSON, they're going to send it back to the frontend, and then we can use it in our application. So that's what's happening here. So after this, what we can do is we can have a console log, or maybe I think instead we can see it if we want. So we can go with the response.data, and we want to set the recipes. Set recipes. This will be response.data. Now the thing is, we can see what we have in response.data. So what we can do right now is, after this, we can have a use effect, and inside this we can have the empty dependency area. We won't be needing anything here inside. No, actually we're going to depend on query, because this query is going to change anyway. So basically that's what we're going to be dependent on. And inside this we can call the get recipes function that we have just declared. So at this point, I think if we save this, I don't know what we're going to see, but let's just save it and see if we can maybe hit the URL and find something. So let's try and save it first. Okay, I think what I need to do is, in case of get recipes, I need this to be an async function, because once this is async, this is how it will work. So now I think I can save it. Okay, I think as you can see that we have an error in recipe.js. So in this file, okay, so basically I missed an inverted comma. The import, as this is a file import, this should be /. Yes, so now I guess we shouldn't be having any sort of troubles. Okay, now if I show this to you now, you can see that we have nothing rendered yet on the app.js, but if we inspect and go to the console, you can see that we have an array because, as I said, that initially the query is set to chicken. This is what we are getting from the console log. These are the recipes for chicken. If I make it a little bigger, you can see that these are the things that we are getting from chicken. So you see a lot of data that we're getting. So we're going to render these data in the front end. So I think right now I can shut this thing off and let's head back to app.js. So in the middle, app.js. Okay. Now the thing is, we want to have a search bar as well. So what we want to do in that is, at first we want something to be written there, and then that data should be replacing the search term with this search, and then that will become into the query, which will be sent to the backend. So in that case, so after this use effect, what we can do is create a function called getSearch, and this will be having e as an event, and here we can have e.prevent default. Then we're going to have set query. In the set query, we're going to set search. Basically, this is a search. We did not set the search yet, but we're going to set the search in the inside of this div. So this is the search that we're setting as the query, and after this, we're going to set search into empty. Okay, so basically that's the thing. That's that. Now inside of this div, first things first, we're going to have a form, and basically in this form with on submit, we're going to call the getSearch, and let's have a class name in search form. Okay, then we are going to have an input with a class name of search bar, and then this will be of type text. The value will be search, and on change, this on change will be e, where set search will be e.target.value. This will be the set search. So once we have this, we want the button with the class name to be as search button, and the type will be submit. Okay, so in case of, okay, I just missed something. In case of the input, we need to have it as a self-closing tag, and then what we can do is, for the button, we can have a closing tag, but before that we can have search and then the button closing tag. Okay, so then the form is over. After that, after the form, basically the form is a search feed. We're going to have another div with a class name, and the class name will be recipes, and inside this div, let's just go for it. Inside this div, we're going to call recipes. That is basically from the use state, the recipes that we have at first mentioned, recipes.map, and inside this map we will be having recipe, and then with this we're going to call the recipe component that we have created. The key for this will be recipe.label. So now the fact is, if we go to the console as we have seen before, I'm going to show it to you in a bit. Basically, we will be accessing this recipe. So if you see the response.data that we already have, this response.data gives us this array, and then we are accessing recipe. So basically, I think what I can do here is, instead of rewriting redundant number of recipes, we can have the set recipe to response.data dot recipe. So with that, I don't think we will be needing to write redundant number of recipe. We can have recipe.label, which will be the key for the recipe, I would say the recipe component. Then after that, we can have the title, we can have the image, and we can have the ingredients. So in that case, what we can do is, first let's make it a self-closing tag, and let's bring this down. So I guess that would be easier to see actually. So after the key, we are going to have the title, and this title will be recipe.label. Then we are going to have image. The image will be recipe.image. And finally, we are going to have ingredients. So we are going to set ingredients to be recipe.ingredients. Okay, so basically these are the things that we wanted to set, and I guess that's that. With this, we are going to have the app up and running absolutely fine. So what we can do right now is we can just save this and quit. Now the last thing that we want is to have the CSS. So if we go to the app.css, we are going to have a bunch of things that we don't need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove every single thing from here, and then I already have the app.css, so I'm going to just copy and paste the things that I already have. Okay, so as I have the app.css, I'm going to just exactly copy and paste what I had, and I'm going to save this and quit. Okay, so now what we can do is check out the app. Let's see. I think there's a little bit of problem in the app.js, so let's see what problem we have. Basically, it says that it cannot read the map for some reason, and let's check it out. I think if we just go with set recipes response.data, and let's try with let's save this and see if we still have the error or not. But no, right now I think we don't have the error anymore. So if I bring this here and make it a little bit bigger, so you can see that we have by default the chicken dishes that has already been rendered, and then like if we search for beef, you can see that we are getting some dishes with beef, which has the title beef in it. So these are some of the dishes with beef. So basically that's the thing, and that's what I wanted to show you. So right now I think I'm going to bring myself back. Okay, so that's that, guys, and that's basically it for the video. So what we have done today is just a small recap, that we have created a proxy server in the backend. But if you can call it a full stack application, because you have a server side and you have a client side. So basically on the server side, what we are doing is we are fetching the data from the API based on the search terms that are being sent from the front end. And these are processed from the backend. The request is sent to the API, and then the response that we have with the data is coming to the backend at first, and then the backend is then sending this data into the frontend, by which we are now displaying the data as you have already seen. So basically, these are some of the things. This is a recipe API that we used from Edamam, and I'm going to leave a link of this Edamam down in the description below, from where you can do the thing, or you can sign up for the recipes with your own user app ID, application ID, and application key. And one thing I'm telling you, that as I've displayed my API key and API ID, app ID and app key, I don't think you're going to be able to use it, because I'm just going to remove it just as I end this video. I'm going to remove that and create another pair of data. So you can use by creating one for yourself, and maybe you can have something that looks like this. Maybe you can do some other changes to the CSS. You can change the color. You can have something else as a default search term and stuff. And basically, these are the things that you can do, and the project will be done for you. So yeah, that's basically it for the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. So if you did, smash that thumbs up, please, and do subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. So I'm going to leave today, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.